Hello and welcome everyone to today's cloud coaching session on understanding and working with fragments in Visual Builder Cloud Service. My name is Tara Van Cleef and I'm a marketing event manager for the developer initiative here at Oracle. We're excited to show you how fragments, a relatively new feature within Visual Builder Cloud Service, allow reusability and modularity in your applications. If you do not currently have an Oracle Cloud account, we've got a special promotion that I'll post in the chat in a minute to try out the services yourself. If you have any questions during the webcast, please ask them in the Slack channel and we'll answer them throughout the session. The link to join is bit.ly/odevrel_Slack. Once you're in, you'll land in the general channel, and from there you can search for North America Cloud Coaching to reach our dedicated space for Q&A today. Today's webcast will be presented by Thomas Palskill, Staff Cloud Engineer, Virtual Code Innovate, and Sean Cartwright, Program Manager, Virtual Code Innovate. Special thanks to Varun Yadav, Senior Cloud Engineer, who'll be supporting the Q&A today. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Thomas.
Thanks, Tara. All right, so as Tara said, my name is Tom Palskill. I'm a staff cloud engineer here at Oracle. I've been here for about 4 years now, just over that. I work out of the Austin office, so if you're around town and you see me, holler. I've got Sean with me today. He's our program manager for Virtual Code Innovate. He's going to be telling you a little bit about what we do on a day-to-day basis to enable customers and help get them started with the cloud or help keep them moving with the cloud. And we've got Varun behind the scenes, sort of the real genius of the operation, answering questions, pulling the strings. So just a brief agenda of what we're going to talk about today. Do a brief intro. Pretty much done with that. And then we'll hop into what Visual Builder is. So the goal of this presentation is to get into fragments, but if you don't understand Visual Builder already, we'll do a sort of high-level overview of what that is as well. And then we'll dive into what fragments are and how you use those in Visual Builder. And then in the actual cloud itself, we'll work on getting familiar with the basics of both Visual Builder and then creating fragments and sending data back and forth between the page and the fragment. And then sort of what we can do with these fragments, right? So modular forms and recent use cases. And then I'll pass it over to Sean, and he's going to talk about Code Innovate. All right. So first, let's talk about VBCS, or Visual Builder Cloud Service. It exists several places in our cloud. You can get it within Oracle Integration Cloud. You can get it as a standalone service. It's also leveraged within Visual Builder Studio, right? So there's different flavors of this, but at its core, what it is a drag and drop development tool. So it allows business users to pretty quickly and easily take an Excel sheet or any like database that they have a connection to and build out some simple apps, right? Dragging and dropping. Not writing any JavaScript, but sort of understanding the flow of events so that they can map that out in a visual way, right? That doesn't mean that it's limited to these very small business user applications, right? It's extensible as well, meaning that it works on JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and REST, right? So even though you're dragging and dropping to write all of those things for you under the hood, if you understand what you're doing, you can further enhance these apps with classic development, right? So it runs on Oracle Jet, which you can see down here in the bottom, which is a mobile framework, works both for progressive web applications on your computer or mobile apps, right? And what it allows you to do is have your development team, whether these are developers who are writing code in Jet or simply just business users that need to build out a quick application. They come into visual development, they lay out the scaffold of their application. And then within Visual Builder Studio, they'll have the ability to manage their entire development lifecycle, right? So tasks, Git, CI/CD, things that help us work together. So that's what our developer cloud service can do. And then ultimately, how do we get the data into the applications, right? The most important part of any application is, since application is just a presentation of data, where do we get the data from, right? So databases, you can connect this to ATP, right? It can run off of autonomous transaction processing, REST. So this is maybe its main strength. It can work on any API, right? So that includes APIs that reach into our Fusion apps. So if you're working on extending any of your Fusion applications, Oracle Cloud applications, you can do that with Visual Builder and then use the REST APIs pre-built in order to extend those, right? But really, it's any API, any system that's built on top of APIs you can leverage with VBCS, right? All right. So then within Visual Builder, it's all drag and drop, and there's these components that are new to the game. They're not new to development. You see them in Android, Kotlin. A lot of mobile development has fragments. But what are they in Visual Builder, right? So they're already in your Visual Builder applications. If you've ever created one, you've probably noticed in your VB apps, there's going to be a header and a footer, and you can't edit those unless you go to the fragments and actually adjust those. But what are they, right? So just like a header and a footer, they're reusable standalone pages made up of their own HTML and JavaScript files. So that's kind of important. They're completely separate, right? So they work on a separate runtime. So multiple fragments can be used on the same page. And since a fragment is in itself a page, fragments can contain other fragments, right? Sort of meta, right? So data can be passed both ways between a fragment and its host page. So you can pass data from the page that you're implementing the fragment to the fragment. And we'll see that flow. And we'll also see a flow where you do something in the fragment and you need to send that data back to the host page, right? Some common flows that we see them in, where they're used a lot with if statements in UI, right? So if this happens, show this part. If this happens, show that part. Or if we have large parts of the application that take a good amount of time to load. Again, since these are their own application, you can defer their rendering based on input, right? So if you don't want everything in the page to load at once, you can set it up to certain like particularly dense elements can load as they're required, right? So why use them? On top of everything I just said, right? So breaking the page into smaller functional pieces really reduces complexity, and it reduces complexity in a number of ways. So the first one is it allows new developers to come in and understand the code a lot more quickly because you've got more of a microservice sort of cloud native service-based approach going on where you're breaking everything down into its smallest functional piece. So instead of seeing like one index HTML page that has 15 forms on it, you can break that down. And each form can exist as its own separate piece. New developers can go understand what's inside that form, but all they need to understand in the larger system is that that form is there, right? So designing these pieces to be reusable provides future gains in developer efficiency. So you can think about this if anytime you're using like a social, like Twitter, Facebook, share this bar, you don't want to develop that over and over again, right? And chances are that if you have developed those, you've taken it from somewhere, right? And so that's basically what a fragment is. It's something that we can drop into an application over and over again to provide efficiency. But what makes it important is that we can pass data between it and our application, right? So besides the benefits of reuse, fragments provide these performance gains, right? So they can be you can defer their rendering, as I said before, right? And what that's doing is saving the browser memory. All right. So when you land in Visual Builder, whatever route you take to get here, whether that's Oracle Integration Cloud or just the standalone service, this is what you'll see, right? So we have your file structure for your application. As you can see here, I'm working in web apps. If you wanted to create a mobile app, you very simply could. Create a mobile application, give it a name, and then choose your navigation style. Right, easy enough. We can even do it right now. So test, and then you'll see the templates that come up for you. So you don't always have to start with something blank. Have some templates, and then on your canvas here, you'll see the different sort of components that it's made out of, right? And these components are all available here in your component bar, right? So these are just going to be basic HTML elements. Some of them are combinations of basic HTML elements, but at their core, they're just building blocks for your application, right? So you'll see like a lot of classic things that you find on web apps, so icons, images, but then also anything you need for a form, right? So checkbox, combo box, and then layout as well. So how do we style the application? You can write CSS, but generally if you're dragging and dropping, it's a little bit easier to see what you're doing as you're doing it. And then there's some other things in here as well. charts, visualizations, file pickers, and things like that. Right? So that's a mobile app. We're mostly going to be working in web apps today, right? And so just doing a little bit of an instrument check. Within web apps, you can create an app. And within your app, you can create multiple flows. And within your flows, you can create multiple pages, right? So that can be a little bit confusing, but essentially, your flows are specific business logic that you're trying to accomplish, and your pages are the pages required to get you there, right? And then where do we get the data from, right? So there's two options, or actually there's several options to get your data, but we've got two buttons here, right? So at the simplest point, we have service connections. So service connections allow us to simply take things from our catalog. So whether that's the Oracle Cloud applications, like I was talking about earlier, we can instantly just click in here and pull those out and start leveraging those APIs. Or if we just have, a URL API and we're trying to post to it, we can set that up as well, right? So one way to get data in is via API and via these service connections. Another way to get data in is through what we call business objects, right? So business objects can exist in a database, or they can exist, just in your VBCS memory for a short time, right? And so I've uploaded 3 of these, but the way you would go about uploading these is you could simply go to Data Manager, right? And then you can import business objects and simply upload an Excel file. And you have some other options here as well. So if you wanted to get the Excel add-in, which allows you to directly edit the data in Excel, you can do that as well as change your development data to a CSV file, right? So just for now, I have World Series data that I pulled in here. So just World Series batting data, right? So if we're going to build an application, this is the data that I brought with to build with. So I'm going to sort of walk through a use case in which we're using these data sets. Right, so we're going to create a player. And if we're looking at the data and we're looking at baseball players, right, they have quite a bit in common, but when you try to get down to the elements that matter in baseball, and you're creating this form, they all have names, right? So that's a check. They all have ages. That's a check. And they all have teams, right? But after that, everything about them is sort of based on the position that they play, right? All of their statistics are different based on whether basically they're a pitcher or a position player, right? A pitcher wants low numbers, a position player wants high numbers, right? So it depends on what we're talking about to get the right statistics in the right place. So with all of these stats, what you would do is, right, on this combo box that I have set up here, right, just with a variable in it, I'm saying, look, if a position player, then show me input numbers for all of these statistics. Oops, sorry about that. And then, great, so show me the statistics for all of these numbers. If they're a pitcher, show me all of these, right? And you can only imagine that if we were to do every position in baseball, because every position does have different statistics, right? So instead of pitcher versus position player here, we had pitcher, catcher, second baseman, first baseman, right? Our if would be pretty out of hand, right? So our bind if right now is looking at other or pitcher, right? And we already are using this much space in code, and it's easy to get lost, right? So this is sort of the easiest way to leverage a fragment, right? Where they're reusable, and what you're really just doing is simplifying the code. So we can take all of these, right? We can go to our fragment section, and we can create a fraction. All right, I've already created the fragment. So it looks basically the same. It's pulling the data from the same place, right? And it's got everything except those things that we decided every baseball player has. So what I've done is I've created a fragment for hitter fields, and I've created a fragment for pitcher fields, right? So what is that saying? That is at its core saying when I choose pitcher, this is what I want to see, right? I want to see the pitcher form. When I choose position player, I want to see the hitter form, right? That's all. So what we can do is basically take everything that we have in these bind ifs out. Bear with me. Bind ifs out themselves, right? And so now we've got a form layout, which we also don't need, and a validation group, which we also don't need. Really, we can just get rid of all of this, right? And then what we do is we come in and in place of the bind if with all of the code that we saw previously, we now have a bind if and we're pointing to OJ fragment. So where did the fragment container come from, right? So just in components again, over here to the left, I can go to my components and I can search fragment container and drop that in, right? Pretty simple. Once I drop it in, on my properties container over here on the right, you can see it's going to ask me to select a fragment. I have several that I can choose here. So hitter or pitcher. I've already got them selected here, right? So it's the same logic here. If the value is not pitcher, then show me the hitter fields, show me the fragment hitter. Otherwise, show me the pitcher fields, right? So that simplifies the application pretty massively. But what does it leave us with is this, right? Which is great. But if we remember, general now is on the main page, and position details is living in a fragment. So if you remember back to the slides, the fragment is in itself its own page, right? So it needs to know from general what exactly is here to pass it on, right? So at the end of this, we'll have a save button. So the save button needs to either live on the page or within the fragment, right? But regardless, we have to get data from the fragment to the page or vice versa. It depends on what you choose to keep the button in, right? And so to do this, I want to show pretty much the most basic aspect of fragments. And I've done that by creating a video, because if I click through this, then I will surely mess up. All right, so here I have a blank page that I've set up, right? And all I've done is I've added a grid row that has a panel in it with another panel, a heading that says page to let us know that whatever's in blue is on this page, right? Whatever is below is in the fragment. Inside of it, I have this called fragment text with a variable. And the variable is simply saying, what is the fragment text, right? So here in this input text box, I have variables input text page. And these are just, they're defined, but they're not pointed to anything yet, right? So what I want to do is get what's in the text input from here into the fragment to where it says undefined, right? So I'll go to the fragment. And within the fragment, I can click on, gonna have to go to variables and then create a variable here, right? And so this variable exists within the fragment. And when we do this, we want to make sure that it's set as an input parameter and a string, because whatever we're passing in an input text box is going to be a string. right? And so when we hit enabled, you'll see that. And then binding type is important. So since it's just a single string, we'll use dynamic field, but there are multiple types of bindings, and it's very important that you watch which one you use. Okay, so now I have a fragment and an input parameter. So now when I go to the fragment on the page and check the input parameter, I can assign it to the variable that I have with the text box, right? So now in theory, whatever I type into the fragment text box or into the page text box will be carried over to the fragment. Right, so super easy. So what we did was we created a variable in the fragment, made it an input parameter, and then just mapped that to the variable that we were sending from the actual page. Right? So super simple. It gets a little bit more complicated when we need to send back text from the fragment to the page, right? So right now that's not going to work. But if I go back to the fragment, we can take a look at what we have here. Right? So we've got our two variables. Again, the variable that has the text, and then the variable that has the input text. All right, and then I'm going to go to the input text and then say, whenever someone inserts a value into this text box, I want an event to happen, right? So I'm going to go ahead and create my event. Just call it data to pass. And then I want to make sure that I emit that event to the container, right? What is that saying? Just pass that up from this application, which is the fragment, up to the page. Great. I'll add a payload, which is again just going to be a string. Okay, and now this event is expecting a string. But we need to make sure that the event gets activated. All right. So on the input text box, we can say whenever this box gets a value, we want to fire the event we just created, right? So we just created the event, now we'll fire it. Yeah, the name that we just gave it. And you'll see that the payload comes up, so we'll have to assign the payload. So you can drag the value over, that's saying this is what was just typed in. You could also drag over just send to page because that's also storing the same information, but it doesn't matter which way you choose, it's up to you. So save. And then we can go back and check it on the main page, right? So now we have the fragment designed to say, hey, something's been typed in here. I have something to say, right? Sending out a message. So that's what that event is doing. So now we need to go back to the main page and we'll click on the fragment again. And now we need an event on the fragment, right? So we can see the input parameter there, that hasn't changed. That's from the previous exercise. But if we click events, we'll add a page event to the parameter, and you'll see that the name that we just created for the event within the fragment is there, right? And we'll simply assign variables, right? So we're going to take the text that was in the input text from the fragment and pass that into the page value. All right. You can run it in live mode just by hitting that play in the top right. That'll lead us to another point, which is within the flow, you can choose where you like the default page to be. Right? So I can change that quickly. Hit play again. And then we'll be on the right page. And see, so now we're passing data from the page to the fragment and from the fragment back to the page, right? So that was like extremely simple and probably a little bit confusing. And I understand that, but for me, that's still the most complicated part of fragments, is getting that data to and from the page. And so if you can really understand that bit and then plug that in with the more complicated use cases like the application I was just showing. Right. So for this application, as I was saying, you'd have to have general. General has variables holding the information that doesn't apply to the position details of the player, right? So if it's pitcher, again, we get the pitcher stats. If it's a position player, we get the batter stats, right? So the first thing that we're passing doesn't actually matter. We're passing this information into the fragment just so we know that position player will be here. I say that it doesn't matter just because we're already defining what gets placed here based on this. So it's a little bit misleading, but you're still going to pass the data from general into position details. And then from decision details or position details, you can hit save, right? And save will map that back to the database. But it's up to you where you want to put the save button, right? Do you want to put it in the fragment or do you want to keep it in the main page? And those are sort of the decisions that you end up having to make. But it doesn't matter. It just depends on what's the easiest way to write that code without moving the data back and forth as much as possible. I don't have much else, so I'll pass it off to Sean.
So hello, everyone. I'm one of the program managers here at the Code Innovate program. My name is Sean Cartwright. First, I would like to thank you for everyone in attendance today for listening in and watching the demonstration. Now I want to take a few minutes to talk about what the Code Innovate program is. So in this picture, you're looking at the children of our Code Innovate manager. So most every year before COVID, he would take his kids on a trip to Legoland, which is in Schaumburg, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. Out of all the attractions and activities at Legoland, their favorite thing to do is participate in a master builder class. During this class, all of the kids were given a clear plastic bag of disassembled Lego pieces without any instructions, much like you would normally find in the Lego sets that you would buy in the stores. The people in the front of the room, pictured here in green shirts, are known as true Lego master builders. So over the course of the event, they work with these kids on the concept of brick interlocking and how to create smooth faces using Legos. The output was a penguin with earmuffs. Showing this class is showing them how to create Legos and use Legos to create things in ways they may have never thought about before. In its simplest form, this is what the Code Innovate program is. So we align our Oracle Cloud Master Builders to help your employees work with technologies in the cloud to create solutions in ways they may have not thought about before, or they maybe just needed a guiding hand to get them a jump start and show them what to do. So it is a 5 half-day online event. The event centers around developing together. So this is Oracle won't be building it for you. We're building it with you. We're showing you how to build the solution. So the goal is for our engineers to impart knowledge to your employees in a collaborative approach that demonstrates rapid knowledge transfer. During this time, your team will ideate on the business challenge, identify tasks to complete, and partner with Oracle to develop a minimum viable product or MVP. Whether you are a novice or pro in the cloud, Code Innovate is all about making, breaking, and building real solutions for your organization's most pressing use cases. So at the end of the week-long event, your builders then present back a short 3-slide PowerPoint presentation and demo to your management to show the technical progress they were able to make during the week, and they'll explain the business value that their solution is creating for your company. So on the bottom of this, it says no cost if minimum requirements are met. So you may be asking, what are the minimum requirements? So the minimum requirements that we ask for are 4 or more developers or builders at the event. We use the term loosely. We use the term developers loosely. They're just people They could be business users that are willing to learn how to build and try our services in OCI. So it's anyone who wants to build in the cloud, they're welcome. So we'd ask for 16 to 20 hours of a time commitment, which roughly translates to 4 or 5 half days. We ask that you bring your own use cases because we want to work on things that you guys want to work on. One of the other commitments is that there's 3 weeks of lead time. That ensures that we have the correct resourcing in place for Oracle and for your company. We have formal cadence meetings once a week for 30 minutes leading up to the event to discuss use cases and logistics. And we'll send out an official email invitation the week before just to make sure that everyone is aware of the agenda for the week and so on. And last but not least, there's no fee to do the event beyond the time commitment that your team puts in as well as our team. So to reiterate on the slide that Tom is showing right now, bring your use cases because again, this is not Oracle telling you what to work on. We want to help you work on initiatives that your company wants to work on and things that actually provide value to your team. The idea of the whole event is rapid knowledge transfer. So our goal is to give you subject matter experts that are familiar with all of the services in OCI that are going to get you jump started, and so that you don't have to spend many hours and weeks and months trying to solve for something that we may be able to get you started on and get you at least 50 to 75% of the way there in 1 week's time. That's our hope. And to build first pass prototype. This won't be production by any means by the end of the week, but it's our intention to give you a leg up on your initiatives so that you're not sort of taking a lot of time to figure out whether a solution is viable or not, or if an approach is viable or not. We want to allow you to figure that out in a very rapid sprint. It's a 20-hour sprint. Last but not least, if you'd like to schedule an event, you can email us at the codeinnovate_US_GRP@oracle.com email address. You can put your names in the chat if you'd like to talk with one of our solution engineers on the team. And the least we can do is give you a demonstration and talk about the agenda and see if this works for your company. So thank you very much for attending today. I really hope this information is valuable for you folks on Visual Builder Cloud Service as well as the Code Innovate program. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Sean, and thank you, Tom. We'll let everybody take some time to submit any questions and take down this email or submit emails at this time. And while we're doing that, I just wanted to say a few last reminders. If you enjoyed this session, we do have upcoming events. If you just head to this bit.ly here, it's just developer.oracle.com/events. And then we also have a quick survey that we'd love to hear feedback from you on about this session or what you'd like to see from us going forward. So that will also pop up as you exit the Zoom, but that's the link to copy that down. And lastly, we have recorded this session. So if you'd like to revisit the recording afterwards, we'll be sending it out to the same email address that you registered with. And that will also be going on the same events page and the Oracle Developer YouTube channel. So, all right, with that, I will check out what we've got in the Q&A. All right, and I'll check our Slack as well. We'll also be keeping that Slack channel open for this entire series, so all of our upcoming events will be in there too. And if you have any questions or want to get in touch with us directly, that's a great place as well. So I'll drop the link to join again. All right. Many questions coming through right now. So with that, I just want to say thank you again, Tom and Sean, for this fantastic presentation, and thank you all for joining us here today. We hope that you have a great rest of your day and that we get to see you again next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.